Thank you for joining. Sorry for already diving into English, but who we have from Tanium with us in a few minutes will speak in English, of course, and we'll continue the conversation from there. We'll just wait a few more minutes for everyone to join, and then let's kick things off. Already a very warm welcome to everyone. For the officials, of course, during the webinar, of course, do not be afraid to ask questions. There is a Q&A chat available, so please, of course, use it. We will leave, of course, some room for questions in the end, but in the meanwhile, of course, let's make it interactive as possible. Or if you think about something, hey, is that possible or something, of course. And to the people who just joined, welcome. Already 2 more minutes, and then we'll get things going. Let's keep this interactive. There is a Q&A section available, so just use it. And if you have a question, just type it in there, and I will reply to it or Andy. There should be something like an intermezzo for webinars, indeed, if you were waiting for people. I will not sing a song, I will not do that, but...
Yeah, I won't be singing either, Martin. You're lucky.
Now let's get going. Indeed, it's already 1 minute past. So everybody, thank you. Very warm welcome again to our Lunch and Learn webinar. I hope everybody received their lunch boxes. What we really want to do in the first webinar we did, and we will send after this one, this will be recorded. We will send a recording, but also the recording of the previous webinar we did with Tanium was really around how can Tanium help achieve NIS2, but that was more on the why and the how. Now it's really on the how and the what we want to focus. So really go technical and really show the product and how it can really, because it has a NIS2 dashboard as well, where we will dive into as well. And that really use that as the red line throughout the story and how you can achieve NIS compliancy with Tanium. Before we kick things off, let's indeed talk about who is who. My name is Martin Kous. I'm coordinator at shiftz. What does that mean? I'm just together with Ivan Lier, responsible for the daily operations of shiftz, and I was specifically hired a year ago to come up with new ways to go to market and things like that. My background is technical, so I have been around the modern workplace for around 14 years now. I love public speaking and sharing knowledge like we're doing today. I'm a tech enthusiast, of course, and yeah, if you want to reach out, there is my email or, of course, on LinkedIn, or if you have my phone number, of course, by all means, reach out. And I'm today jointly by Andy is over there and helping us from Tanium. I'll let him introduce himself.
Thanks, Martin. So Andy Bloomfield, I'm a partner solutions architect assigned to the shiftz team, helping Martin bring their products to market on the Tanium platform. I'll be doing demos today and answering any questions you have.
All right. Very glad to have you with us. Just quickly and jumping in, and I really want to keep only a few slides and really focus on, I promise only have 3 ones after, including this one after this, and then it's dive into the product. Just quickly want to focus on indeed what shiftz does now, because we have made the last year some changes and indeed how we do things. Of course, on one end we still have VDI pillar, so not just only Citrix, as some of you might know us, but we do a lot more over there. So almost everything besides some NISA, but besides that we do everything from VDI point of view. So if you can help you with that, we would love to, and that can be in any way. That can be co-managed, that can be managed, that can be just as a support contract. That's all possible. From the modern workspace, of course, from Microsoft point of view, so the full stack, Intune, SCCM, patching, application lifecycle management, you name it, the same. And that's where we came up, including based on Intune and Tanium, we come up with a service. And that's what we call compliance as a service. What's included in that? That's really just because a lot of your IT teams or yourselves, the most part of your task, that's indeed patching on one hand the operating system, so Windows Server, Mac, Linux, all those things, and of course the other big thing where vulnerabilities can be included, of course, that's of course your third-party software. That's where we want to step in and we want to help you with that. We can say, hey, we will do that for you, and we will do that at a price point where you cannot hire or you can do it yourself, but at least that you're safe and that you know that you are at least compliant, even for yourself, if it's for cyber fundamentals, if you have to adhere to NIS, but just that you have that assurance that at least, okay, we know we're patched, and of course we will track that based on dashboarding that you know at all times where we are. But we will leverage, of course, Tanium in the background to be able to achieve that. If we just look at NIS2, really at the directive and indeed regulations we must do, these are literally taken from the regulation, and these are all the things that Tanium can help and can help you solve. So indeed, incident reporting from one point, indeed, of course, Andy will explain what's possible from asset management, or if there is a problem, or even if there is uncertain event IDs that happen within a Windows system, we can trigger alerts, things like that. So incident responsive is in there. Vulnerability and patching. There are two big things for Tanium. We can, on one hand, we can check with compliance, really see are there any known CVEs or anything like that on the machine. And if there is a patch available, in one action, we can remediate it as well. A lot of other technologies that are out there can indeed, most of the time, hey, we can inventory it or we can do an assessment and say what's wrong, but not a lot of solutions can actually say, hey, I can fix it for you as well. The other big thing is what Tanium has is they have more than 50 million endpoints in management. So meaning if there isn't even an unknown vulnerability yet publicly, not listed on any public repository site, it can be that it's already known by Tanium and already a fix available. So that information is shared anonymously between all online endpoints. Incident, and besides on the patching part, where they also are big in is, again, they use that anonymous metadata to see, hey, how was this update successful installed on other endpoints. So if it has a confidence rate of 98%, you can be quite safe. It will not create blue screens of that in your environment. If it's red, then it's of course something else, but it's something ease of mind, again, that Tanium adds to the management and at your sure. Incident and response detection and response program, again, combined to vulnerability. They can really go threat besides compliance hunting, so indeed listing what is publicly known, but really if there is a problem, indeed really go deep into an endpoint, an asset, whatever, go deep and see where really the problem is and really go into auditing mode, what was changed, what caused this, what had access to this endpoint, stuff like that. They can really bring that into, I really audit it as well. The other thing is where Tanium is really big on, and it's really most of the time where we start, is indeed on the IT asset part. Everything that is connected on the network, they can see it and they can get that in a report. So also everything they can't manage, so everything with an operating system can be managed. So Linux, Microsoft, Mac, and it goes beyond that. There is an agent available, but for some products like OT environments, that's coming up. But with Cisco switching and things like that, we can really do an authenticated scan. So meaning we can log into the device and see, hey, what is the actual level of software from the operating system being used on the switch, and are there known vulnerabilities against that as well? That's possible as well. So of course, everything, security monitoring and logging and everything can we check indeed. For shadow IT, for example, we can check are my USB ports Are they indeed not open that they can be used? Things like that. It's completely possible. And of course, from a cyber hygiene point of view, we can really see from asset management, okay, what is connected, what is it, and then we can connect to other third parties, or you just use Tanium yourself. But integration with ServiceNow is possible with Microsoft, so there are really a lot of options. If you want to say, I want to populate a CMDB, that's completely possible as well, or you can just use the product itself. Goes really deep into which software is being used against my licenses available. Is that actually being used by my users? And even if there are known vulnerabilities like a Log4j, for example, we had some years back, where we can say, hey, just look for that specific version. Is that in use in my environment? SBOM will pull that up and say, hey, yes, you are in use, instead of trying to do that manually. That can easily take months. So how does Tanium actually get started in a NIS and a NIS2 journey? So as you will see, the naming of the dashboard within Tanium is NIST, not NIS. What's the biggest difference? NIST is actually the regulations or the cyber hygiene that is coming from the US government. And NIS2 is just one-on-one, just the translation to actually rules that they have applied. So on one hand, NIST is actually the framework and the guidance and the best practice, where NIS is actually really the interpretation. Hey, you need to have a strong password. Hey, your disks needs to be encrypted and things like that. So they really go hand in hand, and actually NIS2 even goes deeper than NIS. Of course, if we want to be compliant and we want to know what everything is connected on our network, of course, phase one is we need to discover everything that is connected on the network. As soon as that's done and we have everything that is connected, then we can check, hey, what are those operating systems? And if it's indeed an operating system we can manage, we can deploy an agent. If we can't manage the operating system, we can see if we can log into it, and that we can then see indeed at least what's running on there, what version is it, and are there known vulnerabilities, yes or no. As soon as we can manage it and we have checked indeed the vulnerabilities from the stuff we manage and can't manage, we can look at, okay, how can we remediate it? For example, we recently signed up a customer. They used WSUS, so WSUS, for patching. They thought they were compliant. As soon as we added 5 endpoints, 3 laptops and 2 Microsoft servers, they were more than 350 patches behind. Just to give you an idea, when you think you're patched, that was totally not correct. As soon as we can indeed do the Windows patching, Linux patching, everything like that. But of course, then we can see, hey, what is the list of known vulnerabilities? That's very often very confronting, but often that's a lot of as well. So then you have to go down all the compliance rules, but then at least after, if you have patched them all, you have, or remediated, of course, at least you know you're safe, because it will multiple times a day, it will keep scanning indeed what is going on my network and on my endpoints. Besides just indeed mitigating with compliance, with patch management, they have a module that's called deploy. There is a library of a few hundred applications that they can say, hey, if I would just want to keep my Adobe Reader automatically up to date, that's possible. You just put a check mark. If I want to keep Firefox up to date automatically, that's possible. Java, so the most common software is in there as well, where you can see keep it automatic up to date. Or if you want to even go beyond that, if you want to replace SCCM, for example, and we want to say, hey, we want to provision even just laptops and servers, there is a complete provision module available as well. And then, of course, as soon as we are there, okay, that's great, we remediated, we have done a lot, but of course, we need to keep track of that. How can we do that? Tanium is very big on one hand on dashboarding and on reporting as well, so that you can say, hey, I need to show to my management what my patch level is, for example, and I need to be able to keep track of that. Or there is a new known vulnerability. Where are we within the remediation journey? You can really show that directly from Tanium itself. So that's for now my explanation, and I will leave now the demo indeed to Andy. Andy, by all means. In the meanwhile, if you have questions, again, there is a Q&A section. Just use that, and I will reply to it.
Thanks, Martin. Amazing intro. Thank you very much. And yeah, it absolutely sets the scene perfectly. I'll just very quickly explain what we're looking at. So this is the Tanium platform. We have a lab with 1,300 devices. So all of this is simulated. We have unhealthy devices in here. So Tanium has a whole plethora of different dashboards and this kind of thing. But one of them, if I just search in here, is the NIS2 dashboard, NIST CSF. To mapping. And as Martin explained, what we've done is taken the data that comes from the endpoints, that data is real time. If you know the Tanium platform, you'll understand that we have this unique architecture where we can extract data in real time at scale, many thousands of endpoints very quickly, and start to consume that data. What some of these dashboards do, in fact, most of the dashboards, they collect this historically. So we have historical data as well. So we have the live current data. We're not 2 days out of date. The latest data is absolutely live. As Martin said, when you're looking for that one vulnerability that's just been announced, it's a kind of 0 day. We can find that immediately and tell you which endpoints are vulnerable. And as Martin said, then start that remediation journey. So we're fully aware that NIST is American. You guys will be looking at NIS2. Most of the requirements around NIS2 are fundamentally the same as NIST. Some of the way they've referenced things is slightly different, but in terms of the aim and the goal, it's absolutely the same. So we start with assessing the assets that you have in the environment. We have a module called Discover. And what Discover will do, as Martin explained, it will find all of the endpoints on the network, even the ones you didn't know you had. So things like questions that you might get from management could be, is everything patched? Do we have everything patched? And of course, the tempting answer is to say yes. We think we've got everything patched. And then we install Tanium. We actually find normally about 20% of the estate that you didn't know you had. And that includes things that we cannot manage currently, things like printers and switches and this kind of thing. But it includes Windows desktops, servers that people haven't inventoried and this kind of thing. So what we're doing here is collecting platform information. We have in our lab lots of Linux and some Windows and a couple of Solaris. And we're able to break that down also by manufacturer. So in terms of just having that good quality information around audit and inventory and good asset management, we have that instantly. Things like what versions of browsers do we have? So this is a hygiene thing around that third-party applications that you have installed. Very commonly, you might have Google Chrome installed. Which versions are out there? Are we keeping Chrome up to date? And we have a report here. Each one of these, if I open this in a new tab, each one of these mini reports within the dashboard, of course, has its own report built in behind the scenes. So if you need to drill down and have more information about this, there's the whole tables, and we can drill down even more and more and more. Okay, so we'll go back to the initial dashboard. Beyond inventory, we then start to look at things like, within that inventory, we can start looking at things like which of those endpoints have ports open. So we can tell, for instance, here we have SSH open on 653 devices, all Linux, no doubt. But if you're having port 3389 open where you shouldn't have, that's remote desktop, of course, we can audit this, make sure you're aware of that, react to that and remediate it. If you're going through an audit for NIS2, so if you actually get that dreaded email, you're going to be audited in the next 6 weeks, this kind of information is critical, and we can actually pull this out. You may even be able to remediate and provide remediations before the report is actually issued. We have things like rule sets and dependencies between different things, and this is a very NIST2 type of thing with PCI and HIPAA compliance. Again, you may or may not need to comply with these things depending on the industry you're in. But again, having this data immediately within the dashboard, Martin and his team can work with you to kind of react to this kind of data. Finally, on the asset side of things, we also have this shadow IT. Devices that are not currently managed by the Tanium platform or potentially other platforms that you have. So if you have antivirus, things like that, somebody says, are we covered with antivirus? Is antivirus healthy and installed everywhere? And if you don't even know which endpoints you have, how could you possibly have antivirus completely installed and healthy? So here, this dashboard is showing us over time the number of unmanaged devices that are currently in the estate that we found, and the idea would be to obviously reduce that over time and bring those unmanaged devices into the fold and start managing them. There's the old adage: if you don't know what if you can't manage what you don't know, and you can't secure what you can't manage, right? So there's no way to secure something if you don't even know it exists.
From a discovery point of view, I've heard stories indeed even at some public institutions where they even find ink boxes and stuff like that on the network. So yeah, there is sometimes more connected than you think.
Oh yes, yeah. We commonly find when we install Tanium, we commonly find around 20% of the estate is unknown. People didn't know about it. Of course, the other thing finally on asset is if you have a CMDB, very commonly CMDBs are not trusted. They're not good quality data. They tend to have old data in there. And when you're trusting the CMDB to be the kind of single source of truth for all of those business decisions that you need to make, and especially around security, Tanium can push all of this data into your CMDB and make that absolutely up to date, and even multiple times per day if you need to. So we have this integrated risk assessment or risk within Tanium around scanning for vulnerabilities, and then also being able to patch those vulnerabilities, and then of course scan that the vulnerability patch actually succeeded, because just because you patched, it doesn't mean that the patch actually succeeded and was installed. Commonly we see people will patch devices but never reboot them. So one of the common things that we do when we first install Tanium is look at the last reboot time. And if you have a device that hasn't rebooted in 3 months, say a Linux server, how could it possibly have the kernel versions that have been installed since? So you've installed the patch, but you haven't rebooted the device. And again, Tanium can tell you this. So we're looking at risk assessment. Again, I can click on these and drill down, but these are individual devices. So this specific Windows device has a lot of vulnerabilities. It's intentionally in our lab, we leave these things unpatched. And so in terms of risk, we know where we should focus our efforts. We know, Martin and his team can help you identify the priorities to go and look after and start drilling down. In terms of things like vulnerability assessments, we have that covered, but Tanium also has threat management. So we can actually identify threats in your environment based on various intel that we have, signals. So that could be somebody modifies a file, somebody connects to a server they shouldn't connect to, somebody opens an application they shouldn't be running. So they're running Nmap manually and trying to scan the network. We can identify those threats through our threat module and tell you this. We also have the known exploited vulnerabilities. So we can tell you that there are 104 critical devices currently that have a known exploited vulnerability on that device. And again, I'll drill down maybe into this one. We can pull this into a report. Martin's team can help you kind of construct, a plan to kind of go and fix these, but essentially the data is there for you. We can export this. If you're being audited, if you're in the middle of an audit, then of course this is critical information and can be immediately provided to the audit people. So yeah, lists and lists of highly critical devices. So these are devices such as domain controllers, devices running critical business applications. Tanium can identify those devices as critical and then also scan them for vulnerabilities. So back to the dashboard. Again, more and more risk ratings and various ways to measure risk. So we also have this change detection. So if you're changing files that you shouldn't, the integrity monitoring of data that's business critical, we can within Tanium defines certain things that should not be modified. And so if somebody modifies that file, such as changes the permissions on it, or actually changes the file and changes the data within the file, we can tell you and say, hey, somebody, Andy just changed this file. You need to go and look at this. We then have things that can be improved. So we have various measurements of scorings that we think are a good measurement of the health and the hygiene of your endpoints. So we have this Tanium risk score. This is a score that's combining various factors around endpoints. And the intention here is that you're trying to drive this lower. We want the risk score to be lower, and by patching, by making sure things are policy compliant, this kind of thing, we can drive this score down. And this is a good measure to make sure that you're reaching the compliant state that you need to be in. Again, lots of single point measurements here: compliance failure, insecure TLS SSL score average. So things like encryption, I know, is part of NIS2. You need to be encrypting data, but you also need to make sure that the encryption algorithms that you're using are up to date, that are kind of protected for the future. We can detect those algorithms and make sure you're fixing those. We have a Tanium risk score here. I don't know what happened. Something happened in our lab a few weeks back, but we obviously fixed a lot of things. We had a lot of endpoints here that went from a low critical score to actually being reduced down there. So there's we can see over time the improvement in these scores. And again, if you're reporting that to senior management or to an auditing authority, you can show this continual improvement of your platform and your hygiene of endpoints. We have things like protection. So this is domain access. So we have a module which enables you to scan Active Directory and make sure we can map the relationships of different users, the access that they have, and ensuring that we map those things out and understand the risk that we have exposed via our authentication mechanisms, and that's that's displayed here. Weak algorithms on certificates, as I mentioned. Just scrolling down even more, we have data security then. So we touched on this a little bit earlier on. So the ability to detect change to critical business data, making sure that BitLocker is installed and enabled on endpoints. So here we have 29 devices that are fully decrypted. Again, making sure this is a priority. We can also have a graph of this over time, so you can actually see that if you are working on a policy to deploy, Tanium is able to deploy those policies for you, but we can make sure that those this graph improves over time, and those decrypted devices are over time encrypted. USB protection, you name it, we have a whole list of things. AppLocker is, of course, the Mac equivalent to BitLocker. So we have AppLocker in there. And what's the final one here? Encryption status on Windows and Mac OS is a combined figure. We then have as NIST labels it, platform security. So this is hardware, firmware, this kind of thing, making sure that you're compliant. Again, if you don't know it exists, you can't look after this stuff. So it's making sure you have the discovery module running and detecting those devices. But then we have things like software that we are aware of on the endpoint that is eligible for an update. So we're not necessarily assigning that to a vulnerability. We just know that there's some software on endpoints that can be updated, that an update is available for this. So currently we have 340 devices with an old version of Visual C++, and we have a patch or a deployment ready to go for that. All we need to do is get Martin's team to assign an automation to that, and it will start deploying that version. And you can see there's a whole list of these in our lab that need to be updated. Old versions of Teams, old versions of Putty. There was a vulnerability in Putty some time ago. Notepad++, very popular. People use this for making notes. Again, there was a vulnerability in Notepad++ some months back. So these things, keep them up to date. Make sure you're aware of what's happening here. So Policy management, Tanium has a policy management of its own. So we can actually deploy policies onto endpoints regardless of Active Directory domain membership. So you can have even workgroup devices, and we can still policy control those devices for you. So here we're actually mapping enforcement of policies across devices. We have, again, the next section is technology infrastructure resilience. We have this idea that performance of the devices is critical. So making sure your device is not only healthy and making sure that they have the right patches on there, but they're not bound by CPU or RAM problems. So devices like that, people get frustrated with them, that the software isn't performing properly. We're unable to kind of manage and update those devices properly because they're underpowered. And again, this is something you need to be keeping aware of. Things like application crashes and system crashes is also, it's important to make sure you're aware of these for just simply hygiene reasons. Continuous monitoring. So you've seen lots of continuous monitoring. We have all of this over time, but there's a section specifically around continuous monitoring here. I wanted to get to another dashboard, so we'll just scroll down a little bit more. Incident management. So one of the things that's in NIS2 is the ability to respond to incidents. So we have a module within Tanium that allows you to do incident response and actually gather data together. So if you have an exposure, some kind of threat that you're aware of, you can start to gather evidence together from that endpoint. So things like capturing certain files from that endpoint, capturing the current status of browser installations, browser cache, maybe history of the browser, and pull that into evidence before that can be destroyed or removed or changed. And so gathering this together and making sure we're tracking this over time. So one of the things that we mentioned earlier on was the supply chain vulnerabilities. So this is Log4j is the absolute classic example of this. So if you're not aware of Log4j, I'd be amazed if you're not. But Log4j was a library used in lots of different software. It's a Java library. It's just simply for logging. Used in lots of different third-party software. And when the Log4j vulnerability happened, people had no idea where it was actually installed because it's actually a subcomponent of other software you have. So I'm just going to search for. So we've got, of course, a report here directly on this. So this is a report simply of which devices have particular versions of Log4j. So we've actually got a CVE. 2 of our devices have this CVE right now, which is kind of worrying. It is a lab and it's intentional. But actually, if I go to our asset module, and to our software bill of materials, what we've done as Tanium, and again, Martin can work with you if you have specific concerns and things that you need to track, we can easily add these. We've got a whole list of things. So here's a library, a common Linux library called libcurl. If I want to know where that's installed, historically, that would be a really, really hard thing to do. What Tanium does is it goes onto each endpoint and it scans any DLLs, any jar files that it finds, it opens them up and has a look inside to see what libraries are actually installed on these devices. So I can tell there are, let's say we have a particular vulnerable version, 4.3. I can tell that we have 163 devices right now that have this particular library of libcurl installed. And if I drill down, I can see which software that's part of. I may be able to isolate those clients. I may be able to react and patch them. Depends whether a patch is available. But I can certainly be knowledgeable about this. And traditionally, this supply chain vulnerabilities is very, very hard to get hold of and keep a grip on. We also have a whole range of things. Let me go back to the dashboard. So one of the, let me search for another dashboard here. Why is it not letting me select? Let me go back here. So we have a product called Guardian. So Guardian is, as Martin says, it takes this metadata from multiple customers of ours. So we have tens of millions of endpoints deployed across the world. And what Guardian does is it is able to take from our existing customers data that we can find and that we're aware of, and then start to provide intelligence to you, or the teams that you are running this platform, like Martin's team. So Martin and his team would be able to react to vulnerabilities that are in the news and in the press. So we have one for the I don't think it's in here, but because this particular environment doesn't have SharePoint installed, the dashboard isn't coming up as an alert for this environment. So we do have one for SharePoint. So the recent vulnerability around SharePoint, that if you have SharePoint and we've found endpoints in your environment that are running that version of SharePoint, we will present the dashboard to you and be able to read this. But if I have a look at remote management tools, so imagine the scenario: you're trying to keep your environment nice and clean. You've patched, Martin and his team have patched everything. They've got all the software up to date. We are aware of the few vulnerabilities that are left that maybe don't have a patch, and we're kind of managing those with maybe some firewall rules or policies. But there's a whole set of other things underneath the hood here, which are things that are maybe risks that you need to be addressing. One of those examples would be remote management tools. So if you have unknown tooling on your endpoints, and this is just one example, right? So this is just one example. It's really important that you are aware of that and you're reacting to it. Now, in this environment, we have 15 devices that have VNC installed, and that may be fine. That may be a sanctioned application that's okay. But if you're finding VNC on devices that shouldn't have it on there, and bear in mind some versions of VNC do not have very good encryption, that could be a serious problem, and you need to be able to be reacting to that and stopping it. We have another application called Screen Connect, but you can imagine there'd be a whole range of different applications here that would come up. In fact, I'll quickly show you the kind of value that Tanium provides here. This report would be quite tricky to create. It's the kind of thing Martin and his team might do for you if you have a specific concern. But if I open this up, what Tanium have done is just created a huge list of all of the different remote management tools that are available, and put that into a report and make sure that we can identify and detect those in the network.
So this the one I just want to highlight on is what Andy said. Indeed, there is a built-in remote management tool available as well, and that's indeed ScreenMeet. So meaning you don't need another third-party tool again to connect, like you would sitting in front with a keyboard and a mouse. And that is indeed ScreenMeet. So meaning no additional agent, no nothing. You can just say, hey, this endpoint, I really want to connect to it for help desk reasons or actually see what's going on. That's completely possible with one click of a button. You can connect from the same console to the endpoint.
Yeah, thanks. Absolutely. So we have our own, we have a third-party integration with ScreenMeet, and that's, you don't need any other applications here. And certainly there are definite risks with having remote applications, remote management applications installed on servers. You don't know who's able to access which servers from where. It could be from the internet, and they are, people that have left the business 5 years ago and they installed some software and now they can still maintain access. It's kind of serious stuff. Another one, which I'll just focus on, which is the Windows 10 and the support. So again, in terms of hygiene, Martin and his team, if you still have Windows 10, I hope you've got some plan around this. But if you don't, and you're managing to keep Windows 10, very quickly, again using the data behind Tanium, we're able to find all of the endpoints that are that of course have Windows 10, but also machines that are eligible for an upgrade to Windows 11. And if you are planning to buy the continued support, the extended security updates, so it's obviously there's a purchase from Microsoft, we can also manage that for you. So this is, again, just the value of Tanium, the visibility of that real-time data that we have, allows us to build these dashboards for you. Martin and his team can do exactly the same. So there's a clone button up here. Martin, for different customers, can create dashboards for whatever, within reason, I guess, for whatever you need that's specific to your requirements here. But again, scrolling down, we've got all of this Windows 11. We've got license status. So we've actually got 5 of somebody's licensed 2 of our devices for the ESU, I guess just for the demo. So that will show you, making sure that you're managing this. Just showing you a few more of these Guardian alerts. There's another SMB vulnerability. So again, it was in the news. There's lots of stuff around this. It was remote execution vulnerability. So Martin and his team would be on top of this, of course, but the product, the Tanium product, will actually identify these things in your environment and start to flag to you that these things need to be looked at. Yeah, so there's a whole range of different things here. In terms of yeah, let's just go back to the first dashboard here. Let's go back to the NIST one. CSF mappings. So one of the key things with NIS is making sure that you're addressing all of those things that Martin listed. So there's a big list of things. Making sure that when and if, honestly, you're audited, depending on which kind of vertical you're in, which kind of, if you're any large organization or government or energy, this kind of thing, then you will be audited at some point. And having a report like this available at your fingertips, that's live at any time. Tanium has pretty amazing access control. So we have an RBAC system which allows Martin and his team to give potentially you direct access to this report yourself, so that you can read this data and have a look at it. The data is, as I said, real time. We have all sorts of things that are being added to the platform constantly. Martin talked about some OT devices. There's been an announcement last November around us doing endpoint expansion. So currently we support PC, Mac, Linux, AIX, and Solaris, but in the near future there will be additional devices beyond that. I can't go into much more detail than that, but it's there was an announcement around endpoint expansion. I'm just going to look near the bottom here. So I think we covered incident mitigation. So I guess what I'll do is just open up for questions here, Martin. I think the message is clear. We have a really integrated platform with real-time data. We can do this at scale, so almost at any scale that you have in terms of endpoints. We can discover devices and then start to audit them and then start to scan them for vulnerabilities. With the services from shiftz allowing you to kind of leave the experts to running this platform, making sure your endpoints are healthy through a managed service. That's the quickest and easiest way to get the results that you need for NIS2 compliance. If you're in the middle of an audit or you know that there's an audit coming soon, Tanium can be installed extremely quickly. So we can get Tanium in within a matter of days. Of course, there's some discussion on that, but it can be installed very, very quickly. And the data then it comes back from the clients within minutes, within seconds sometimes. So Martin, any more comments? Anything you'd like me to show the guys on the call?
No, thank you very much, and thank you for the comprehensive explanation. No questions yet. What I just wanna add, if there are no questions, we have, of course, it would not be a webinar without a call to action. What we can do is, of course, like Andy said, a common POC can be quickly and easily be set up between 3 and 5 business days, depending on, of course, on the modules included. What we didn't mention really, we did that the last time, but like Andy explained as well, everything you see here below the question bar, they're all modules. So again, Tanium is an ecosystem, and as an MSP, we still have the flexibility that we can offer the product indeed based on modules. So if you say, hey, I want only asset management indeed, and I want to have patch management, and then I'm fine, I'll already have a very good third-party product. Of course, we can replace that. But if that's indeed fine, you only want to use it for that, that's completely possible. I have a POC coming up where globally the company decided, hey, you have to use this for vulnerability management, but hey, I still want to get the insights around compliance and everything like that. I still really I want to see what Tanium can do on that end. That's completely possible, for example, just for the visibility and the interaction. From a call to action point of view, we can do a POC, that's one, but secondly, the easiest, and it indeed will not cost you anything, is we can just we can run an assessment based on the dashboard you saw. We just have to deploy some agents. We let that run for a week or 2 weeks, and then we can just have a talk about everything we found, and to just give you a real state of how compliant or safe or patched is my environment. That's something that's completely possible as well. I think we did our very best. I have a few people who said indeed no, all clear, no questions. So that's I think we did a very good job then. Of course, if after this call you think of any question or anything like that, of course, please contact us. We will reach out to you as well. We will of course do that. Everything about thank you. Of course, we like we said, we like to share knowledge. We really believe, and again, we did mention, and that's Tanium is used to a lot of large customers. No, in Belgium, we have small ones as well. The smallest one we have right now is 125 endpoints. Everybody has the same challenges, and we all need a solution, something like this, to be able to adhere to all the threats that are currently out there, or to be able to comply. All right. Then I thank you all for attending. I don't think there are any questions. We have left already some room. And Andy, again, thank you very much for being here.
You're welcome.
And everybody. And all to you, the biggest thank you to you, of course. We cannot share knowledge without an audience. So thank you very much for attending. And I wish you a great day. Thanks for attending.
Thank you for your time. Yeah, take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Martin. Bye-bye.
Thank you.